In this video, we're going to explore one of the most epic battles ever fought, which took place 3,200 years ago, and it's not even close. The Battle of Kadesh was a clash of titans that pitted Ramses II, the great pharaoh of Egypt, against the might of the Hittite Empire. The stage is set for an epic showdown between two of the most powerful empires of the ancient world, Egypt and the Hittites. Both sides are eager to claim victory and establish dominance in the region. For the Egyptians, it's all about protecting their interests in the valuable trade routes of Syria. The battle ended in a stalemate, which led to a peace treaty and the establishment of friendly relations between the Egyptians and Hittites. The peace treaty that followed the Battle of Kadesh was a significant event in ancient history. It marked the first time that two major powers had chosen diplomacy over war, and it paved the way for centuries of peaceful coexistence and cultural exchange. Instead of relying on chariots and foot soldiers, the Hittites focused on mobility and flexibility. They used light infantry, cavalry, and a mix of chariots and horse-drawn vehicles. This allowed them to adapt to changing circumstances on the battlefield, and gave them a significant advantage over the Egyptians. The young prince had been captured by the Hittites, and Ramses II had gone out to rescue him. The Egyptians and Hittites were evenly matched, and the stalemate continued. The Egyptians realized that their traditional military tactics and reliance on chariots were not enough to defeat the Hittites. They needed to adapt and incorporate new strategies and technologies into their army. The Hittites, on the other hand, learned that despite their military success, they couldn't hold off the Egyptians indefinitely. They needed to be prepared for a long-term conflict and have a plan for dealing with the Egyptians' relentless attacks. Both empires would go on to learn from their experiences at Kadesh and would continue to clash throughout history. The legacy of the battle would live on, inspiring future generations of warriors and shaping the course of ancient history. Eventually, the two leaders agreed to call a truce and negotiate a peace treaty. If you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe for more updates on ancient battles. See you next time. They decided to end the fighting and instead focus on building alliances and trade partnerships. They ventured deep into Hittite territory, where they were confronted by a large force of Hittite soldiers. A fierce battle ensued, and Ramses II found himself outnumbered and outgunned. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, he managed to escape with his son and return to the safety of the Egyptian camp. It was a daring and heroic feat that cemented Ramses II's status as a legendary warrior. The Hittite king, Mewalt II, was a skilled warrior and strategist, and he used his forces to great effect during the battle. The Egyptians and Hittites learned from each other's customs and traditions, and they also engaged in extensive trade, which brought wealth and prosperity to both empires. The Egyptians and Hittites had different beliefs, values, and ways of fighting, which made for a truly epic showdown. His chariot was damaged, and he was forced to abandon it and switch to a backup vehicle. This was a humiliating setback for the Egyptian pharaoh, who was used to riding in style and comfort. But Ramses II was a brave and determined leader, and he refused to give up. He continued to direct his troops with a loudspeaker and tried to rally them to victory. Ramses II and his elite troops charged into the thick of battle, determined to protect their pharaoh at all costs. The Egyptians were well equipped and organized, but they were also overconfident. Ramses II believed that his chariots and infantry would easily defeat the Hittites and establish Egyptian dominance in the region. However, he didn't anticipate the Hittites' innovative strategies and superior mobility. The Hittite cavalry and light infantry were able to evade the Egyptian chariots and strike them from the flanks, causing chaos and confusion in the Egyptian ranks. The Hittite archers were also deadly accurate, raining arrows down on the Egyptians and preventing them from advancing. In fact, Ramses II even married a Hittite princess, which further strengthened the bond between the two nations. Meanwhile, the Hittites want to expand their own territory and assert their power. The preparations before the battle were a crucial part of the showdown between Ramses II and the Hittite king. Ramses II had expanded and reorganized the Egyptian army, and now it consisted of several divisions, each with its own role and responsibilities. The infantry was made up of foot soldiers who were armed with bows, arrows, and spears. They were responsible for defending the pharaoh and maintaining order. Chariots were an essential part of the Egyptian military arsenal, and they were driven by elite soldiers who were skilled in maneuvering and attacking. Ramses II personally led the charioteers, and they were the most fearsome weapon in his arsenal. Chariots were used for reconnaissance, delivering messages and transporting important supplies. Their speed and maneuverability made them a valuable asset on the battlefield. The Egyptians also used archers on chariots, who were responsible for raining arrows down on the enemy from a distance. They were trained to shoot accurately and quickly, making them a formidable opponent. The Egyptians also had a specialized group of soldiers, called the elite troops, who were responsible for protecting the pharaoh at all costs. They were hand-picked by Ramses II and had undergone rigorous training and were loyal to a fault. They were armed with the best weapons available and were positioned strategically around the pharaoh to ensure his safety. Each leader wanted to ensure that his army was well-equipped and ready to face the enemy. The Egyptians and Hittites had very different approaches to warfare, which influenced how they formed their armies and executed their strategies. Ramses II, confident in his own abilities and the strength of his army, charges into battle with his elite troops leading the way. But he's in for a surprise. The Hittites are well prepared, and their archers and charioteers give the Egyptians a run for their money. Arrows fly, chariots crash, and the dust rises as the two armies clash in a fierce battle that will be remembered for centuries to come. Ramses II, the third pharaoh of the 19th dynasty, has his sights set on expanding his empire into Syria. But he's not doing this alone. Alongside him are his two favorite gods, Amen and Ra. These divine allies give him an advantage over his enemy, the Hittite king Muwatalli II, who relies on the support of the weather god Tahant and the storm god Ish. You could say that it's a battle of gods. We're talking about tens of thousands of soldiers on the battlefield at the same time, plus chariots, horses, and elephants. It was a true test of strength and skill. But who came out on top? Let's dive into the details and find out. His chariot is damaged, and he's forced to switch to a backup vehicle. But he's not giving up. Despite the setbacks, he leads his troops with bravery and determination, refusing to back down in the face of adversity. But as the fighting continues, it becomes clear that neither side is able to gain the upper hand. The Egyptians and Hittites are evenly matched, and the battle becomes a stalemate. Eventually, the two leaders agree to call a truce and negotiate a peace treaty. They decide to end the fighting and instead focus on building alliances and trade partnerships. The year is 1274 BCE. The place, the Orontes River Valley near the Syrian city of Kadesh. But let's get back to reality. As the Egyptian and Hittite armies face off, the tension is palpable. As the battle rages, Ramses II finds himself in hot water. So who won the Battle of Kadesh? Well, the answer might surprise you. Neither side actually won a decisive victory. Now let us go back to the beginning of the battle and explore the strategies employed by Ramses II and Muwelt II. The Egyptian army was a force to be reckoned with, thanks to their pharaoh's obsession with military preparedness. On the other hand, the Hittite army had a more decentralized structure. When the two armies met on the battlefield, the clash of cultures and strategies was evident. As the battle raged, Ramses II found himself in a precarious situation. The climax of the battle was a dramatic moment when Ramses II, along with his son and heir, Amun, went missing in action. As the Battle of Kadesh drew to a close, neither side was able to claim a decisive victory. In the aftermath of the Battle of Kadesh, both the Egyptians and Hittites emerged with valuable lessons. What do you think of Ramses II's reckless abandon in the face of danger,